About a year ago, I sat in a service and the person that did the talk started with what I'm about to start with. And it really touched me. This person stood up and had to do a talk on divorce. And that person had gone through a really difficult and painful divorce. And he said to us, he said, I knew one day I'd have to talk on this subject. And the reason it touched me is because it was real. And there's so much that we see in our lives and we read in the Bible and listen to what others have to say. When we're going through it ourselves, there's a certain difference. So when I got this reading a month ago, I perhaps shouldn't have told you that because you now not had a month to prepare, but that first line, do not let your hearts be troubled, that was a real difficult one for me, and indeed for my family. I'm just going to start at this point, and it's not for a sympathy vote, it's to say that what Jesus said 2,000 years ago is real for us today. And my troubles and my family's troubles are very simple in many ways. We lost our business. I started another business and I lost that too. We've lost our home, all our savings, all our investments, and at some point we actually started to lose hope. So when I saw that do not let your heart be troubled, I felt that when I was writing this I was going to be a bit of a hypocrite. Because I can tell you, I have been troubled. And we've been through so much, and actually in many ways still are. But this passage has put so much hope into such a desperate situation. And I went for a meal 2 weeks ago with a good friend of mine, a recent Christian actually. And I said to him, I just feel a hypocrite standing up to say, don't let your hearts be troubled, preaching the good news, yet I am troubled. And Steve said, Craig, you're missing the point. I said, what am I missing? He said, the fact is that you are going through troubles and you're prepared to stand up in faith and hope and proclaim the good news for us all. He said, you have no idea how much hope that gives. And that really changed my thought process. And I tell you what changed. I stopped looking at me. I started to look and think for others. That we've all got troubles. And I brought these binoculars this morning. We've got these in our conservatory. I'd like to think I'm a bird watcher, but I'm not. And I've been looking through these in the wrong direction. But when you look through that way, everything's really small and far off. And that's how I guess I fell into that trap of looking in that way. But of course, when you turn them around, you can see things much clearer, especially your eyes glazing over the speech. So that's where I want to start. Now it's quite interesting that if we just look at where this passage is taken, it's at the time where Jesus is with his disciples, he's just about to face that cross, and I kind of find that Jesus is pouring his heart out, he's trying to give them as much as he can in these last hours. So around the time of him washing their feet, and the time when they had the Last Supper, and he is trying to just give them all these reassurances, all these golden nuggets. But there's something quite interesting that they've spent 3 years with Jesus, but the reality is starting to kick in, that he's not going to be there anymore in the way that they understood and have come accustomed to. Jesus is going. So the reality of what Jesus has been preaching for those 3 years has had to become real in their lives. In exactly the same way, all of us today have to have that same thought process. There comes a point where Jesus and what he says has to become real for us. And often through trials and tribulations, that's when you get to the bottom of it. You see, my experience is that the more trials and tribulations you face, one of two things happen. You either run away or you run closer to God. And you depend more on Jesus and ask more and pray harder, or you go the other way. I've gone praying harder, and as much as I've not been working hard, because I've not been able to, I have been praying hard. That I do know. And I don't regret a single thing of what I've been through these last 2 years to get to this understanding of what I'm about to say today. But it's interesting he said, don't let your hearts be troubled. He didn't say, don't let your head be troubled. I thought, that's a really strange thing to say. I'll come back to that right at the end. But there's an element of this that you have to put your trust in Jesus, and trusting somebody and putting your trust in something is totally different. Because if you say that you trust somebody, all you're doing is asking them to take care of you on your terms. But if you put your trust in somebody, that's very different, because that's a giving of you. And it takes immense courage and strength. Immense courage and strength to give your trust to somebody. But you can also give your trust in submission when you're broken and you've got nothing left. Don't think that putting your trust in Jesus is easy. It's easy for him to take our trust. He's there for us all. But for us to give it is the issue. And that was the same with the disciples. What did Jesus say when he hung on that cross? Psalm 22, 1. Lord, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, I don't think for one moment he thought that he wasn't going to meet his Father in heaven. I think there's actually a message for us right on the cross to say, God will never forsake you. You can trust him right through it. And here's another interesting thing that hit me. When he was on that cross dying, he was looking over to the guy either on the left or the right, and he was saying, when he asked, come to heaven with me. In that ultimate pain and tribulation, he's still bringing people to his Father. And as me and my family are going through our immense trials and tribulations, it doesn't get away from the fact there's a core and central message. Just because we're having problems, God's bigger picture is what it's all about. Why do we get troubled? What is that? It's immense reasons. But I think it boils down to two things ultimately. One is that we're looking through things in the wrong way. It's all about us. And we're focusing on our problems and our issues and our concerns. I think the other reason why we have troubles is because we sin. And sin simply means we're separated from God. We don't have a relationship, we don't pray to him, we don't talk to him, we ignore him. So we haven't got God in our life, we've got our own lives, and that can be drugs, that can be sex, that can be alcohol, that can be lies, deceit, all those things. That's ultimately what causes our troubles. And the other thing about sin is it has this habit of playing havoc with us. It torments us. We know we're doing wrong. But God forgets our sin when we come to Christ. So we should work on forgetting it also. Because confessed sin in prayer and honesty to God is A, forgotten, and B, he can only love us for that. He can only love us. I think trials and tribulation are God's way of getting us in a little classroom. He never gives us more than we can handle, and he just tests us. And it's a classroom of his will to try and understand and get to understand him and get to know his ways. And it's an opportunity for him to magnify himself in our lives when we just get to the end of who we are and what we are. And then this piece of magic jumps out from the Bible study. Where is our biggest trouble? I'll tell you where our biggest trouble is. Every one of us in this room is going to die at one point. That has got to be most people's worst fear. And what does Jesus say? I'm going to prepare a place for you, and when everything is ready, I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am. What does that really mean? I'll tell you what that means. The moment that we close our eyes for the very last time, we will open them in the blink of an eye, and Jesus will be there with his hand in ours, taking us to heaven. Now, if that's not comfort, if that doesn't take you trouble, that ultimate trouble, and isn't that a Christian hope? Isn't that why we are here? Because without that, we haven't got any faith at all. There's nothing worth worshipping or praising. So then he says he's the way, the truth, and the life. And that one is quite profound because it's the the only religion that says this, that if you don't accept Jesus and call on his name, we don't go to heaven. That's quite a bold statement, isn't it? And the guy said it was Thomas. Says, hang on a minute, we don't know the way. No, we don't know, Lord. And he says we, and that's quite interesting, that he doesn't say I. So what you know is his disciples are just like us. They're nattering amongst themselves because he used the word we. But he had the tenacity to ask Jesus. He said, come on, explain to me. And we have the same opportunity. We can get on our knees and ask. Actually, no, I don't know the way. I don't know where I'm going. And part of our challenge as Christians, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that we say, you know, I want to follow Christ now. What does he want me to do with my life? And we have these big pictures of things he can do with us. And trust me, he has a plan for every single one of us. Something quite spectacular. Something bigger and greater than we could ever imagine on an individual basis if we discern how to follow him. Because there's a difference between an awakening, so today there might be something I say, oh, actually that really went in, and then there's the walk. And the walk is walking with Jesus and understanding how he operated and how he thought. That's what he means by the way. A, to get to heaven is through him, but the way is in him. And we have access to that today if we spend the time to look in our Bibles and understand him and come to church and unpack what we're trying to learn. Following Jesus, I've learned, is about discerning his will. And his will is in the Bible. And let me give you a very simple illustration of how it works. Craig, how many beers did you have at the pub last night? I can do it my way, or I can follow Jesus. My way would be, oh, just 1.5, love. Jesus' way, it was 4 and a double scotch. That's following Jesus. And we then talked about truth in our Bible study. What is truth? Really interesting question. Well, let's put it to you this way. What's a lie? Because anything away from truth is a lie. Truth is eternal. It is immovable. It is unnegotiable. The truth is eternal today in our lives as it will be in heaven. But a lie has no value. It has nothing